Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Monday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. What are you celebrating today? I am celebrating so much. First of all, I am returning to the stage tonight. I'm going to be celebrating Tommy Tune, and I am also celebrating Kevin Winkler's new book, Everything is Choreography, all about Tommy Tune. This is an event for dancers over 40 right here in New York tonight. So I'm very excited about that. I'm also celebrating the fact that today is Petula Clark's birthday. I love her and she's always worth celebrating. Today is National Writing Day. And how appropriate that tonight I'll be celebrating the writing of Kevin Winkler. And today is also Mark Bego is in the house, and he has written, I think, over 67 books. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
Where do you,
and I'm such a young kid.
And you're such a young kid. Where do you find the time? First of all, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I love the colors around you, and you're wearing a Peter Max. We're all color coordinated today.
Exactly.
Peter Max. But in addition to the fact that this incredible book is, and we're going to be bringing Freda Payne on in a moment, but what are you celebrating besides the fact that you have the 67th book is now everywhere and everybody's talking about it?
This is wonderful. It's very gratifying. When you write a book, or in Freda's case, very much put a CD out or a song or whatever, you never know how the public is going to respond to it. And I am absolutely thrilled that we've gotten wonderful responses to this book from the minute it came out 2 weeks ago. And I'm just thrilled. Everyone is so surprised to learn all about Freda and all her goings on behind the scenes, as well as what really happened in her career. And this is something that really sparks my interest, is like I like writing books about people who are accomplishing things, and I want to write about their creative process. So this was something I really found out about Freda, and I think the readers are loving it. So I'm happy.
Mark, that's one thing that I love about you, that you are interested in the creative process. And thank you for doing that. So I want to celebrate you for doing that, because that's what these shows that I do are all about. But let me ask you, and I've had Freda on this show before. I am a huge fan of hers. I love her. But why a book about Freda Payne?
Well, to tell you the truth, I first met Freda in the 1970s when I was in New York City working for Q magazine, CUE. Wow. And I was the nightlife editor, and Freda was performing at the Playboy Club in Midtown Manhattan. And I met her, and she was lovely, as she always is. And throughout the years, I would run into her, especially through our mutual friend, Mary Wilson. We'd be at a lot of the same events. So Freda and I started talking years ago about doing a book. And finally, when I was collecting recipes for my Eat Like a Rock Star celebrity cookbook, Freda gave me a great recipe for her gumbo. And in that very conversation, after I got the last ingredients written down, she said, okay, so when are we going to sit down and start working on my book? So we set a date for lunch. We went out to one of my favorite ramen restaurants in Los Angeles, and she proceeded to, over the next 2 hours, tell me fascinating stories. And after that lunch, I knew this was a book.
Now,
and a hit book.
I'm going to bring her on in a moment. There's been so many stories over the years about what Band of Gold really means, the song, the interpretation of the song. What have you learned about what the song means, and how does it resonate with you?
Well, for me, I always just liked the song. The song was great. It sounded great coming over my car radio, which for a Detroit boy is what's really important. How does it sound on the car radio? And I always loved it. I thought that possibly the husband in the scenario was having second thoughts about the marriage. But, and when we get Freda on, she will tell you of other theories that existed that I wasn't really listening to. I was just thinking, well, it's just kind of a marriage that the honeymoon's not happening, but the wedding went fine. So I didn't delve that deeply into it.
Now, he may have had second thoughts about the marriage, but you never had second thoughts about writing this book.
None whatsoever, because Freda Payne is so fabulous and tells such great stories.
Yes, she is. And I want to share something. I mean, she was on The View on Friday afternoon singing Happy Birthday to Whoopi. And Freda, you were phenomenal, as you always are. And I do want to say also, for anyone who is in New York, and I am going to try to get my tickets today, you are going to be at Birdland on Monday night, celebrating the release of yet another CD. Do you ever stop?
For me?
Yes, you.
Oh, do I ever stop? Well, let me tell you, during the pandemic, I definitely did stop. You know, a lot of people, but that's what gave Mark Bego and I a chance to really do the book, because we were both stranded basically in our own residences, you know, pandemic shutdown. And we were on the phone. He's in Tucson. I'm here in LA. And we were on the phone almost every day, like for 2-3 hours sometimes. And that's how we got the book done. But we actually started before the pandemic. You know, we started in 2019, actually.
Wow.
And he came to the house. He came to my house in Encino, and we sat down and started. And then, I think about a month. Was it about a month later? That's
yeah,
wait a minute.
We came out here then.
And then I came out to Tucson, and I spent almost a week there. And by the time I got home, this was in March of 2020. By the time I got home, about 2 or 3 days later, the shutdown, they said, okay, that's it. Everything shut down, you know.
I want to tell
everyone. So that's what happened.
I want to tell everyone how those of us in this business roll with the punches. David Salidor, who is watching, and David, thank you for putting this together. Yesterday, I'm having a nice leisurely day in Connecticut. I come home, and at 9:30 last night, I get an email from David saying, Mark and Freda are available tomorrow at 12 noon. Are you available to do this? I contacted my designer, Glenn Charlo. I said, can you put something together? I went to StreamYard. I put the show together. We threw all this together in less than 24 hours. Here we are. I'm so excited that you both said yes, that David made this happen. Rosa Puzo in the wings has been working to make this happen. So the alchemy of making all this happen. Mark, when you're writing a book, especially someone who has had such a vast career as Freda's, what is the starting off point for you?
Well, sometimes we start in the middle. Sometimes I'll say, tell me your most fascinating story, or tell me all about X, Y, and Z. I know that first session that we had where we were kind of just exploring it, we hit on so many topics from different eras that it just kind of grew out of a natural conversation of me going, oh, really? What happened? What was that like? Oh, that reminds me, so we kind of bounced all over the place. It isn't like I start out with someone's childhood. I want to know the juicy bits first. I want to know where we're going with this.
And, there's a lot of juicy bits, because that's what, as we move through the years and the decades, I would say that the beginning, where I was born, Detroit, my childhood with my sister Scherrie and my parents, blah, 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 blah. but the juicy part it's starting like in the teens, and then into the 20s, and then the 30s. It gets juicier and juicier as you go. So it's like it evolves into the people I've worked with, the circumstances that confronted me in my career, the love, the romances I've had, the loves I've had, the downfalls, let's say the decisions I made that maybe they were good decisions, and sometimes they weren't so smart or good decisions. But it's like I think everybody has that in their life, at one time or another. And I just feel that people who know of me as a singer and a celebrity, they don't really know me. I'm very private. I don't like to be out there all the time and going to all the parties, but I do like to be seen, and I like to go places and go to special events. I think I think they'll get a lot out of this book, and I think they'll be quite surprised about some things that I have stated in the book. And I'll tell you one thing: I don't exaggerate. I tell it exactly like it was. If anything, I don't tell you how it to the extreme of all the details that happened, because some things I may not really want people to know.
Mm-hmm. Well, there needs to be, an air of surprise. There has to be an air of secrecy in anyone's life. Mark, where you have written so many incredible books, as I said in the introduction, 67, and so many people have opened up to you over the years. You obviously have a job to do. I mean, when someone says, I choose you to sit down to help share my story. Yes. And obviously you also come from 2 points of view. You are a fan, you are a friend, and you have a job to do. How do you mesh those 3 places or those 3 points of view together to create a book for the reader that takes you out of the equation?
Well, I'm proud to say that in situations like this with Frida, with Jimmy Greenspoon of Three Dog Night, Mary Wilson of the Supremes, Martha Reeves of Martha and the Vandellas, Mickey Dolenz, the Monkees, when I sit down with these folks who have become friends of mine, I end up learning more than it goes in the book. I have the real secrets on everybody. Right. The nice thing, or the positive thing, without bragging about it, is I think I'm easy to talk to because I'm curious. I'm naturally curious, and I ask questions that I want answered, mm-hmm. and I feel that the reader will want answered. And one of the things I really try to do in my books, especially a collaboration with a celebrity such as Frida, is make the reader feel like they're having a conversation with her, that she's revealing all these secrets to them and them alone. And I think that's one of the keys of success to a book like this, is you feel like you've had a conversation with the star.
Yeah. Frida, I want to ask you, I'm a huge proponent of journaling. I've been keeping diaries and journals pretty much. I came to New York when I was 18 years old. And if I ever sit down to write my book, watch out, everybody. You're
going to tell everything?
I will call you when I'm ready. But Frida, do you keep journals, or did you keep diaries growing up?
I didn't quite understand what you said. I'm having a problem with the audio here.
He was wondering whether you keep a diary at all.
Okay. I can hear you better, Mark. Okay. I have to confess, I never ever kept the diary, and the reason is because I didn't want anybody to know all my what was going on in my life. I felt like it's like somebody reading about what you did like last week or last year, and you don't want them to really know. It's almost like an extreme form of saying a privacy. It's a form of privacy. Some people have kept diaries and manuals about their life, and I never did that. And in a way now, I wish I had, because there's so much that I've probably left out of this book and forgotten about. And as I go back, for some reason, now that when I start reading what we've got in the book now, Mark, I'll lie awake and I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and all of a sudden I'll start thinking about, oh, I should have said this, I should have said that. So that leaves room for a second book. That leaves room for a juicier book. Well, this is really what happened in Prague, Czechoslovakia, back in 1965. This is really what happened in New York.
I can imagine with all the meetings that the two of you had. I mean, first of all, how long was the process? And of course, you were writing this book during COVID. So what was the process for the two of you? Did you have a lot of Zoom meetings? How did you work together, especially over the last year and a half?
Well, mainly over the phone.
You go ahead, Mark.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mainly over the phone, but in person, we did a lot of in-person tapes as well, at her house, over lunch, at my house. So I was left with things to transcribe. And when I transcribe the conversations, then the book kind of grows piece by piece. I look at putting a book together like putting together a giant jigsaw puzzle. You have all these pieces, and there's many ways in a book to tell the story. Do I concentrate on this? Do I go strictly chronological? Do I set it up so there's a punchline? So I took all these scraps and put them together in what I feel like is a logical chronology to inform the reader and not confuse the reader.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's what happened. That's how we worked together. I would literally dictate. I just sit down or on the phone and I just tell Mark stories. I would let him know what I want to be said. And then he would transcribe it and then send it back to me via email. Mm-hmm. And then I would read it and then I would make corrections, or I'd say, okay, Mark, let's say it this way. Okay, Mark, let's add this to it. Let's add some more to it.
Right.
And then Mark would also scrutinize it from his point of view as a writer. And he would maybe what'd you want to say? Reshuffle it around somehow, right, so that it becomes it reads a little better. I'll put it that way, so that it reads better. It's all in how it reads. And that's one thing about me. When I read a book, I want to feel like, oh, this is an easy read. It's like this person is talking to me. It's like this person is like just sitting there and they're sitting across the table from me and they're just talking about their life and I'm listening.
And because there is so much to digest in a person's life, when did you know that it was time to give birth to the story, if you will?
Well, I knew because many of my peers in the industry have written books, mm-hmm, many. And I was thinking, I said, oh, there's Aretha, there's a Darlene Love, there's Gladys Knight, Candy Staton, Betty LaVette, and I can go on. And of course, Mary did hers long time ago. And I really should have done a book at least 20 years ago, at least. And, but I realized that time is a ticking on, and I wasn't getting any younger. And I said, you know what? I better write this damn book before my memory goes.
I'm going to disagree with you. Based on the way that I see you now, I think you are getting younger.
Huh?
I think you are getting younger.
She is getting younger every day.
Yeah.
Well, that's what people say. But, as long as I can keep up this front, I'm getting younger.
What was it, Billy Crystal, who said it is better to look marvelous than to be marvelous?
That's right.
Well, maybe, I don't know if I can do it. Maybe I've been able to do cartwheels and splits almost my entire life up until now. I don't know if I can do it now, but I'll try.
And Mark,
just keep the ambulance standing by.
You might be able to do the splits, but getting up may be a problem.
Mark,
No, I can probably do a split, but it's sort of like a problem getting up. Yeah.
Mark, did you also reach out to other people in Freda's life, or was it solely through Freda's own words that you chose to tell her story?
Freda talked to a lot of people in her past to trigger her memories. I know that she called, I know you called Carol Preston and some of the other people that from your past to like kind of relive those early days in New York, which are always so exciting because I moved to New York City too, to become a literary star. You know, you pull up at 21 going, hi, discover me. You know, so I love those stories about Freda being discovered and her drive and determination to become what she has become.
Yeah, but you know, the funny thing about that too, Mark, when you say people that I knew who would know a lot about my life and maybe remember more than what I would remember, a lot of those friends of mine are no longer with us. They're deceased. And they were the main ones I would have depended upon to contribute. They're not here. They're not around to talk. So I have to just kind of like reimagine or recreate what happened back then. You know, like I said, remember, like I said, you're getting older, so you know, I better hurry up and write this book.
Well, it's all there.
But I'll tell you one thing, I'm waiting for the backlash of some of people calling me or getting in touch with me and saying, hey, Freda, you forgot to tell them this. Oh, hey, Freda, you know, this happened and that happened. You didn't mention it. People will be wondering, why didn't you talk about me?
And Mark, did you have an outside editor or do you do the editing yourself on the book?
Well, we went through the book over and over. We read this book
we went through this book
so many times. Yeah. We should have just taken a book for tape from what we read. Oh my God, we read and read and read. But we did, there was a copy editor. You know, there's always, you always try and get every period and comma and name and everything correct. And there's always going to be something that falls through the cracks and you go, oh my God, why didn't I catch that? But knock on wood, we've gotten just about everything and kept it quite accurate.
Yeah.
So we did have an editor on that and we went through it and we would find little things here and there. I mean, that's kind of what the publishing business is all about. And I said to the publisher at one point, I said, I want this book perfect. And she said, there is no such thing as a perfect book. There's going to be a comma out of place somewhere.
Yeah. So, actually, the book could have even been longer, but, you know, like I said, you know, you just don't give up everything. You know, leave room for more.
Keep them coming back for more. Definitely.
Yeah. Stay tuned for the second issue.
One of the people we did reach out for very successfully was our dear late friend, Mary Wilson.
Oh, yes.
Part of this as well. And for anyone out there that doesn't know, Mary wrote the introduction to this book. And we had just gotten it like in October, November.
It's like about 2 or 3 months before she passed, totally unexpectedly.
I know.
Nobody ever would have imagined it in their wildest dreams. Really, it was a shock. Such a shock.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Mary Wilson because, I mean, she was, so important for both of you. And Mark, you've also written about Mary. Let's talk about her in terms of why her for the forward for the book.
Well, it was a natural situation because I was best friends with Mary, and Freda and Mary were, you know, Hollywood buddies from way back, running around at parties and making fabulous entrances here and there. They have been friends for years. So the three of us would hang out together, and it just became kind of a natural thing. And then when Mary and I did the book Supreme Glamour in 2019, and it became such a huge hit, it was just sort of a natural transition to go, okay, let's get the team together and we'll do this book. Now it'll be Freda's story and Mary's going to have a part in it. So it was truly three friends working out of mutual love for each other and the project.
I know Mary and I have to tell you this. I think I first met Mary with Barry and Diana and Florence Ballard, not in Detroit, but in LA. And I think Diana's mother was with them. And this was like in the sort of like when they were just really starting to heat up and have a couple of really huge hits. And then I ran into them again in Manchester, England, which I write about in the book. And they were appearing they were on tour doing a tour, the Motor City Review. And they were coming through and they were at this old theater. And I was in Manchester because I was performing at a supper club. And I saw it in the paper. And so I called the theater and I said, is Berry Gordy there? And they said, oh, yes, he's here. He's backstage right now. I said, could I speak to him, please? I'm an old friend from Detroit. He got on the phone and he said, what are you doing here? And of course, I told him that I was performing. So he came to see my show at the club I was performing in. And it was one of those private clubs. It was a private club. So it was a very nice place. And so he said, I want you to come to see our show at the theater. And I did. I came back to see this. I went over, I think, the next night to see their show. And he brought me backstage afterwards. It was the Supremes, the girls, Diana, Florence Ballard, Mary, and then little Stevie Wonder when he was little, and Junior Walker, and I believe the Temptations, all the original guys, and I don't know if the Four Tops was with him by then.
I think Smokey was there, definitely.
Oh yeah, the Miracles and Smokey, and we went back. He brought me backstage. And I saw everybody. And then Smokey was the one that said, hey, Barry, Frida ought to be with us. So then Barry said, when are you coming back to the States? I said, oh, in a couple of weeks. He said, well, when are you coming back to Detroit? I said, well, I'll probably come right to Detroit. And he said, well, give me a call and maybe we can do something. But the rest, there's a lot more attached to that, and I won't talk about that now. You'll have to read about that in the book.
Read it in the book.
I love it. Mark, I want to ask you, I mean, you and Frida obviously have bonded. You've learned so much about her. Without giving away any spoilers in the book,
she's going to write a book about me next.
Yes. What one thing have you learned about Frida that you did not know about her that really surprised you as you were writing this book?
Well, one of the things that was a recurring theme in this book is using the song title, The Road We Didn't Take. And this is something I really learned about Frida because I was like, oh, no, why did she do that? Why didn't she do that? Why'd she do that? So she explains a lot of the roads she didn't take. And I didn't realize that there were choices at exact moments that shaped her career and may have had a different outcome.
Absolutely.
For instance, the reader will find out that there were a couple of instances where she was nearly signed to Motown Records. And a lot of people assume, being from Detroit from that era and produced by Holland Dozier Holland, that she was part of Motown. Mm-hmm. So we unravel that whole mystery. And it was based on roads she didn't take or decisions that she made or didn't make at the time. And I think that was a fascinating one for me.
Yeah, I get that all the time, especially when I'm doing interviews on radio for radio shows and mainly in the UK. And they always say, how is it that you're from Detroit and you came from that same era and you never got signed with Motown? Because most people, they don't even want to believe it. They just insist. They still say, oh, you were a Motown artist. And I have to keep saying, wait a minute. No. But I was produced and recorded by Motown producers, Holland, Dozier, and Holland. And they had left Motown by then when I started recording with them. But the reason why is all explained in detail in the book. Yeah, And it makes, to me, it makes sense.
Right
It makes sense. And it's about, it was first, you have to say it was my mother, you know, who was a very smart woman. She was very bright, very bright. And it's how she felt. That's how she read the situation. And there were reasons why she felt that way. It wasn't because she was just being old fashioned or let's say ignorant. She was far from ignorant.
No, very
but
right.
Like they say, everybody has their own road and everybody has their own destiny and fate. And that's how I look at it. Everybody has their own destiny and their own fate. And it's like that song, there's a song called You Gotta Follow Your Road. Follow your road. And one day your road will take you far away. And I'm still here.
You sure
I'm
are.
still here.
Well, I interviewed Davis Gaines, a Broadway performer, entertainer, a few weeks ago. And he said, being in this business, you think you're mapping out a career. But once you're in the throes of this business, it's like being in a pinball machine. You're tossed from side to side. It's really a matter of the people that you meet along the way, the choices that you make, the life choices. Frida, you and I have spoken before. A lot of this, again, is mapped out in the book. But there are, if you were to think off the top of your head of three people, just clearly off the top of your head, who truly, you would say at the top, who made major choices in your life in terms of the road that you did take, who would those people be? Mapping out to where you...
I can't, it's hard. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
Mark?
Well, we're discussing, and I was thinking of mine as well, as three people who you feel are key components of your life, who are really important in the decisions you made or the paths you took.
Okay, three people. Well, one would be Eddie Holland, because of the fact that he's the one that was responsible for giving me a hit, a couple of, not a hit, two big hits, 2 gold records. And oh my God, who else component in my life? Three people.
Maybe Quincy.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe Quincy, but that could have been better. And I have a story behind that.
How about David at the agency in the 60s? David. Baumgarten.
Oh, David Baumgarten. Oh, I'm sorry. You see, there's my memory. Mm-hmm. David Baumgarten, he was the CEO, president, and the owner of Agency for the Performing Arts, which people call APA. Mm-hmm. And this was in the 60s. He was like my godfather. He was the one who, he helped me a lot when I was really down on my ass and I was getting ready to give up and go back to Detroit. David, I was suddenly introduced to David Baumgarten by my roommate, Sandra McPherson. She's not with us anymore. She was my roommate. And she says, I'm going to introduce you to this agent. He's got his own agency and he can help you. And you don't need to go back to Detroit. And even my father, my stepfather, he said, Frida, don't give up. He says, you've come too far to give up now. And when she introduced me to David Baumgarten, he just took me under his wing. And all the agents there, Marvin Josephson, Harvey Litwin. There were others because they signed me. And at the time I had already done a lot of work. I had been on Johnny Carson's The Tonight Show several times. I had done a Merv Griffin show. Right. I had performed with the Smothers Brothers. I had performed in major venues as an opening act with major artists. I had done a lot. I had also also I had recorded my first album on a jazz label called Impulse, and I had been signed by ABC Paramount. So I had done some stuff. You know, I wasn't just a newcomer. I was a newcomer, but I wasn't just somebody who hadn't done that much, maybe worked a few little, small clubs or something like that. I had done a lot of stuff.
One of the fascinating things that readers will learn in this book is that Freda had some amazing opportunities when she was only 17 years old.
Right.
She first met Duke Ellington, performed with him a couple of times, including Las Vegas, went on tour with Pearl Bailey. This is all at the age of 17.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And Broadway.
Broadway beckoned. I mean, when she moved to New York.
Oh, I did, Leslie. That was when I was still, that's when APA signed me, because I became Leslie Ugham's understudy. And she had two understudies before me, Emily Yancey and Norma Donaldson, but they never got to really go on and do the whole show. And when I was finally hired to be Leslie's understudy, I got to go on 5 times. And you know how serious they are on Broadway, honey. If you don't have it, you don't get to do anything. If you go on once and if you don't bring it, your ass is gone. And there's somebody else watching, sitting in the audience watching, so they can take your place. So I went on 5 times, and the first time I went on, I got a standing ovation.
Well, of course you did.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I want to ask you yourself, I mean, writing a book, and Mark, maybe you'll be able to relay this to her so she can get the question, but what did she learn about herself writing this book?
That's a fascinating. Okay, I'll give my impression. In these books, a lot of people kind of, I'm used as the shrink sort of sometimes. not in Freda's case, she didn't need a shrink.
Right.
But I think that the people I work with often learn things about themselves by telling their story, because they're telling it from a perspective they'd never thought of before, where they're trying to put their whole life in perspective. Did you learn anything about yourself, Freda, when you wrote this book?
Well, I learned that I'm far from perfect. I learned that I could have, made different decisions. I learned that, what did I learn? I learned a few things about myself that if I could go back and do it again, there are a lot of things I would have done differently. If I could go back, and I could even go to the point of when I graduated from high school, I could have gone to Juilliard, but I didn't. And that's because of my relationship. I had a friendship with Duke Ellington's son, Mercer Ellington, and Mercer was on the board at Juilliard at the time. And he wanted to help me. And it was one of those things where if I had pursued it, I could have done that, but I didn't. So I never went to college. Well, so that's when I met, that's when I just started working. I started getting jobs and getting booked. So that's what happened. But if I could go back and do it again, I would have wanted to say I would have gone to Juilliard. I don't know if I'd graduated, but maybe a couple of years.
Well, to paraphrase Kay Kaiser from the 40s, you went to the College of Musical Knowledge.
Honey, I went to the College of Life. Just moving to New York, I was going to the College of Life. And then when I went to Europe in 1965, that added on to it. Yeah. A lot of experience.
Well, and that's what's so fascinating about Freda's career is that, we in America see what was on the charts here and what she was doing here, but she's a huge international star who performed a lot in Europe and continues to do so. Really has had a presence there. And what I've learned from doing a lot of these books is that we in America very often are like, oh my God, look who's in the top 10 at the moment. And people are big stars. And oh, my career's going to go on forever. And here it's kind of like, well, next week we're on to the next batch.
Yeah,
and
it's like who's the new girl in town?
Exactly. And I feel like, you know, when you go to Europe, they're like, oh my God, Freda Payne's coming back. So I think American performers are more highly revered in Europe than we revere them often here.
Right.
Do you have a theory on that, Mark? You've written so many books and you've covered so many pop entertainers. Do you have a theory as to why you think that is?
Well, I think the entertainment business just devours people. It is always looking for the next big thing, the next big person, the next big sound. And they're so busy doing that very often people don't stop and go, well, wait a minute, let's celebrate all the cool things we did last year. No, we got to start thinking about what we're doing next year. So a lot of people end up lost in the shuffle and get disheartened. Freda is someone who now I know even though she's had disappointments in her life or made decisions that maybe she wished she had made better, she just continues moving forward. And I think you have to have that kind of personality.
Yeah. And the point when people ask me, what advice would you give somebody who's aspiring to be in the business, a singer or musician or whatever, writer, what advice would you give them? I would tell them to never give up, maintain your principles, follow your gut. If you have a doubt, don't do it. You know?
Wow,
that's very good advice.
That's very good advice. Mark, I want to ask you, how long has it been since your first book came out? I mean, 67 books. I mean,
I was 24.
I'm sorry?
I said I was 24 at the time.
Oh, but and you're only 29 now.
It's true. It's so true.
It's true. So I asked this question because obviously, I mean, you've covered the gamut of so many great entertainers, and you've seen an industry that has changed so much. What are some of the biggest changes that you have observed firsthand as far as the entertainment industry? And what are some of the changes that you absolutely love about the business? And what are some of the things that you absolutely wish that would come back that you miss?
Well, I'm someone who, growing up, I knew all the old Hollywood stars and the singing stars from the 40s and 30s even. And I feel that I'm just making a comment about today. A lot of people, you mentioned someone like the Temptations to a 20-year-old and they go, who? I find that all the time. Yet when I was growing up, I knew about people who were artists and painters and actors and singers who were well before my generation. So it amazes me that a lot of people don't have that kind of knowledge. And one of the things, just coming back to the book with Freda was so generous in this book of telling other people's stories who are long forgotten, just to keep their memory alive and their accomplishments alive. And I think that's very important. I think you have to know about what came before to appreciate what's going on now. And one of the things that you're talking about changes in the business. Well, I used Joni Mitchell's Court and Spark album, which is one of my favorites. I've had it on 8-track, cassette, CD, vinyl. It's like, would they quit inventing formats for crying out loud?
And now they're going back to vinyl. Well, they're going back to vinyl now.
Well, and now we're back to vinyl, and thank goodness I have all mine. So, and they sound great.
Me too.
Yeah, that's why you mentioned like keeping the name of performers who've come before us. That's why when I do Ella, I chose Ella Fitzgerald as a subject, as a person, because I felt that I more easily fit into that box as a singer, as a jazz singer. And I kind of like felt like in a way I was kind of a little bit like Ella, not totally, but as a singer, I felt like I can sing like that. I can scat like that. I like a lot of the materials she sings. My childhood growing up was nothing like hers, but yet, just like today, she was discovered doing singing in a talent contest at the Apollo Theater in Harlem. And she didn't even know she had talent. She didn't even know she was a good singer. She thought she was a good dancer. And she wasn't really, not by professional standards, but that was in her to push herself. And then when she saw that wasn't going to work, and she sang at the Apollo and she won the contest. And then that's what led her into entering other contests around, in and around Harlem. And she won more contests. And finally, a musician by the name of Benny Carter led her, took interest in her and introduced her to Chick Webb. Yeah. Chick Webb had a big band at the Savoy Ballroom up on 141st Street and Lenox Avenue. And Chick Webb almost didn't take her on because of the way she looked. She wasn't really, attractive. Her hygiene wasn't good. She was literally almost homeless. Mm. But Chick Webb, when he heard her sing, he said, there's something here. This girl is got a special sound. And he got his wife, whose name was Sally, to take Ella and just, teach her how to have good hygiene, how to fix her hair. Took her to the department store, and bought her some new clothes. And that's what happened with Ella. She had some help. Somebody who saw the raw talent in her. And it really made Chick Webb more famous because the songs she recorded with him, like Mr. Paganini and A Tisket, a Tasket, even made him more famous. Unfortunately, he wasn't in great health. He had a real affliction, and that was pneumonia. He had pneumonia of the spine. Wow. And he died at the age of 30 years old, which is very young. He was like a kid. To die at 30 is like a kid. And it was at the height of his popularity. But then Ella, at that time, she had become famous herself. And she went on and continued to be the leader of the band, and they called it Ella Fitzgerald's Famous Orchestra. And that went on for 2 years. Wow. And then from there she went on, and then she eventually met Ray Brown, the bass player, who was with Dizzy Gillespie's band. And her life just went on from there. And then and then in the early to mid 40s, she met her manager, Norman Granz, who was an entrepreneur, producer, and he formed the Philharmonic, Jazz at the Philharmonic, where he employed the top jazz musicians in the nation. Majority of them were African American, like Dizzy Gillespie, Oscar Peterson, and on and on. And then he managed Ella, and he's responsible for accelerating her career to extraordinary heights. Yes, he it's a good thing she listened to him and followed his lead. That's how she came to record the American songbooks. George and Ira Gershwin, Rodgers and Hart, Jerome Kern, Cole Porter, and on and on.
Harold Arlen. Yes, so many. They're incredible.
Yeah.
Well, and Ella is fortunate enough to have you telling her story and keeping her music alive. I think that's very important.
Yes.
And
I've done the play. By the way. I don't just do Ella in clubs and performing arts centers as a one-woman performance concert. I also have been in the play. That was a play that was written by Lee Summers, the book, and Maurice Hines is the one who called me and said, Freda, this was in 2004. He said, There's a theater, a regional theater in New Brunswick, New Jersey. It's called Crossroads, and they're producing the play Ella Fitzgerald, First Lady of Song, and You're My First Call. He said, are you interested? I said, yes, of course I'm interested. And then we did that and got rave reviews. And then a few years later, 2014, we did it again at Metro Stage in Alexandria, Virginia.
Wow.
And Metro Stage. And I got a rave review from the Washington Post. And then the last time I did it was in 2018. And it was at the Delaware Theater in Wilmington, Delaware.
Wow.
And that was another beautiful run. And I got great reviews in Wilmington, Delaware at the Delaware Theater. And Maurice he always directed it and choreographed it. Yes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, we are going to run out of time, but before we do, I always end my shows this is my little homage, Mark and Frida, to Inside the Actors Studio, James Lipton. He always ended his show with his list of questions, and I've got some random questions that I'm going to throw at both of you, just for some fun. And I'm going to start with Frida. So, Mark, you may need to interpret for me.
Okay.
And the first question for Frida is, what is the one thing about your work that makes you the proudest?
Ooh, Frida, what's the one? Did you get that?
That makes me the what?
Proudest, the most
proud. The proudest about my career. Oh, wow. That, all those kind of questions always kind of like the one thing about my career that makes me the proudest. Well, you want to know about recordings or accomplishments?
Overall.
Well, right now I'm very proud of my most recent recording effort, and that's Let There Be Love, that was produced by Rodrigo Rios, and The Love of My Life, James Michael Getz, who was the executive producer and made it all happen. And he had a lot of creative input as well on that project. And of course, what else makes me proud? Working with Mark Bego. That's made me very proud. And I just, all the things I've done. I mean, I'm just very proud. I'm proud of my journey.
That's great.
It's, those kind of questions stump me because there are many things I'm proud of. I can't say one thing or three things. It's like a lot of things have made me proud.
That's great. And Mark,
Yes.
This is for you. What do you think is the best thing about your profession?
Well, that people are introduced to new ideas, new concepts, new music, maybe, and maybe they see in my books I'm talking about people who've made certain decisions which have worked out wonderful. And I'm hoping that I'm proud to know that I inspire some people. I've talked to people before who said, I read your book about so-and-so, and I never thought of X, Y, and Z until I read that. And thank you for saying that. I'm like, oh my God, someone is paying attention. I'm very proud of those moments where people say, I really liked what you said. It gave me insight that I never had before.
That's great. And
I could say that I've inspired other artists, other female artists who have actually come up to me and said, Frida, you inspired me to do what I had to do in the business. You're from what I saw or learned from you by watching you perform and knowing your journey has inspired me to go on and be better.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
This is for Frida. What would you be best at were you to change careers?
Say that again.
What would you be best at if you chose a different career?
Oh, oh boy. If I had chosen if I couldn't sing, if I didn't have a voice, well, you're going to laugh. But when I was 13, I wanted to join the army. I wanted to be a whack. And my mother, of course, my mother said, "No, you can't do that. You're not doing that." She didn't even want me to be a Girl Scout.
Oh, wow. Okay. Mark?
Or I don't know what I would have done. I wanted, when I was 12, I thought I wanted to be the best. I wanted to be the best. That's all I remember now is I wanted to be a doctor, and then my grades weren't good enough.
Okay.
And then I wanted to be a nurse, and then I couldn't stand the sight of blood.
Oh. Wow.
And then I said, I think I'll join the army. I'll be a whack. And then I could be a general. I can really be somebody.
I like that.
I can be big. Claudette Robinson was a Marine. She was in the Marines. I couldn't believe it.
This is Smokey Robinson's ex-wife, who's an absolute doll and was on
an absolute dream. A wonderful lady. And when she's the kind of person, if you know her now, you would say, impossible. She was a Marine before she started singing, with Smokey. Mm-hmm. I couldn't believe it. I said, now I could have been a whack. I could have been big. I could have been somebody.
Mark, this next question is aimed at you. What is the hardest thing to forgive in your profession?
To forgive? Oh, betrayal.
Good answer.
How's that? I'll leave it mysterious.
And the next question, again, is for Freda. What issues are you most hypocritical about in your profession?
I can't. You got to.
Okay, which issues are you most hypocritical or about in your profession?
Which issues I'm most what?
Hypocritical?
Yes.
Oh. Okay.
Which issues I'm most hypocritical? Well, I would say right now, I see that a lot of nudity in with the young millennial females, and I kind of criticize it, but then when I really, let's say, reverse my opinion and say, if I were coming along now and if I were 20 years old, I might be doing that same thing. You know what I'm saying? Like being a hypocrite is like saying you're condemning somebody for something that you see as being wrong. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But if you were in their shoes, if you were in their circumstances, you would probably be doing the same thing.
Oh, okay. Okay. And Mark,
does that answer your question, Richard?
Absolutely. And
okay.
Mark, this is aimed at you. What was the job in your life that you've enjoyed the least?
The job I've enjoyed the least. Well, I liked being a line cook at Howard Johnson's. I thought that was a scream.
Which one? Was this the one on 46th Street?
I love that one.
Mark, was it the one on 46th Street?
No, it was actually in Michigan. I could make those fried clam strips like nobody's business.
Okay.
That one I liked. Some summers in college, I worked on the assembly line at General Motors Truck and Coach. And I didn't really love it, but I have to say I learned a lot about people and how the world is run and how things happen. So I wasn't thrilled at the time, but looking back on it, it was an interesting experience.
Okay.
Can you imagine me on a truck line bolting things down? I could do it.
Anything is possible, Mark. Anything's possible.
Challenge me, I'll do it.
And this question is for Freda. Whose brain power in her industry has she found the most intimidating?
Whose brain power have you found the most intimidating in this industry?
Oh. That's a very difficult. whose brain, in other words, what you're saying is that who's very, very smart and cynical.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. Yes.
Yeah. In the industry. Barry Gordy.
Okay. Wow.
Barry
Wow.
Gordy Jr.
Wow. 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 And Mark, who in life have you felt the strongest need to protect?
Who in life have I found the strongest need to protect? My reputation.
I love it. And Freda, you're going to get the last question today.
I haven't wanted to fully embarrass myself in front of my family, but I'm sort of out there, so everyone knows that I'm unconventional, let's say.
And I'm going to give the last question to Freda. And Freda, what is the one thing about working with Mark that you have loved the most?
Working with Mark that I love the most, right?
Yes.
Yes.
I love Mark's positivity, and I love that he's always got a smile on his face, and that he is very intelligent.
I love
Thank
that.
you. Oh,
I want you both to sit here for just a moment. Don't go anywhere. I want to thank everybody who tuned in. David, I want to thank you for making this happen. It happened very quickly, but we made it happen today. Thank you to everyone who tuned in. I know I can speak for both Mark and Freda when I say this. We don't take it for granted in this industry when you spend time with us. So thank you that you spent an hour with us this afternoon. If this was your first time at Richard Skipper Celebrates, my hope is that you will go to the banner on Richard Skipper Celebrates and click the button that says join the celebration. It doesn't say subscribe for a reason. I got rid of the subscribe button because to me, the word subscribe means a faceless entity, and I think of you more than that. My job, my goal is to celebrate everybody who is on this show. I have had over 350 people on this show, including Freda, and hopefully she'll be back. And hopefully,
Mark, thank you.
And hopefully,
and Mark, I've got to get somebody to show me how to get this sound going, because the last time when you interviewed me, Richard, it wasn't like this.
No, it was perfect. And today was perfect as well. You're here. We made it work. Mark, you're welcome here anytime.
Thank you.
I always, so leave a comment on YouTube, share this with your friends. I always end my shows by telling everyone to go out and do something nice for somebody else without expecting anything in return. This is what I want you all to do, everybody watching today's show. I want you to go to Amazon.com. I want you to order 2 copies of Band of Gold. You're going to keep 1 copy for yourself, and then you're going to go to your Facebook friends list, and you're going to send 1 copy to the 6th friend that pops up, and you're going to send it to them. And they're going to learn all about Freda and her amazing life and career. It's an amazing read. You're going to love it. I can't wait. Mark, are you already thinking about the 68th book?
Yes.
Let me know. Let me know.
Don't forget to mention that I'm going to be performing at Birdland on November the 22nd. That's next week.
Yes.
I'm seeing her.
Monday night, Freda will be at Birdland at 7 o'clock. Is that right?
Yeah.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. I am going to hopefully be there. I'm going to try to get my tickets tonight. Freda, I want a photo op. So we will get.
Okay. You got it.
So we will be there. I am actually going, I always end every show by telling you we're going to go out and do something nice for somebody else. Pick up the phone and call your best friend. Let them know what they mean to you. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private message, but a phone call. Because as my dear friend David Friedman says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. You never know what someone else is going through right now. But I would say if you're going to go out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. Now, I'm going to leave the screen and I'm going to give Mark and Frida the final word. So, Mark, I'm going to let you go first. Say what you have to say. It could be about anything that we talked about today. It could be about something that we didn't talk about that you want to talk about, or just any message that you want to put out to anyone who's watching. When you finish, I will take you off the screen and Frida will have the final word. Frida, you don't have to worry about how to end the show. And Mark explained this to her so she knows what to do. As soon as she finishes, when she says goodbye, I will end the show. Thank you both for being here. And once again, David, thank you for making this happen. And everyone, make it a great day and an even greater tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
My statement is please go out and buy Band of Gold and discover the wonderful story of this wonderful lady. If you, Freda Payne is, of course, known the world over for her hit songs like Bring the Boys Home, The Road We Didn't Take, and especially Band of Gold. But let me tell you all out there, she's a hell of a lot more than just a band of gold.
And I guess my final statement would be, thank you, Mark, for giving heads up and a good advertisement for our book, Band of Gold, a memoir. I'd like to tell people, just like Richard said, pick up the phone and call somebody, or even better yet, I would say, try to visit someone, but have your mask on in person. And of course, get vaccinated, get your vaccinations. And I've had all of mine. I had Moderna, I had it twice, and then I had my booster. So that's 3 vaccinations I've had. And just keep your spirits up and just meditate and also exercise. You can, even if you don't want to go to a gym, you can go to gyms now, but you have to show your vaccination, your proof of vaccination. But just take care of your body and eat well and drink a lot of water and take supplements. As you get older, you need to take more supplements. Just don't give up. Just keep living and doing the best that you can for yourself and for mankind.